Isaac Newton, born on January 4, 1643 in the tiny hamlet of Woolsthorpe, Lincolnshire, England, entered the world under humble and inauspicious circumstances that belied his future greatness. His father, a yeoman farmer also named Isaac, died 3 months before his birth, leaving his mother, Hannah Ayscough, to raise him alone. A premature infant, so small he could fit into a quart mug, Newton defied early odds of survival in an era of primitive medicine. At age 3, his mother remarried a wealthy clergyman, Barnabas Smith, and moved away, leaving young Isaac with his maternal grandmother, an abandonment that seeded a lifelong streak of insecurity and irascibility. Growing up on the family farm, he showed little initial promise, preferring solitary tinkering to chores, crafting sundials and kites while neglecting livestock. Sent to the King's School in Grantham at 12, he lodged with an apothecary whose books sparked his intellectual curiosity, though he remained an indifferent student until a bully's taunt spurred him to excel, topping his class by sheer will. In 1661, at 18, Newton enrolled at Trinity College, Cambridge as a sub-sizar, a student who worked for his keep, his mother having refused to fund his education after pulling him from school to manage the farm, a role he disastrously botched. Cambridge exposed him to the era's intellectual ferment. From Aristotle to the new philosophies of Descartes and Galileo, he devoured texts, filling notebooks with dense, meticulous observations, his mind a furnace of restless inquiry. Financially strained, he graduated in 1665 without distinction, but fate intervened that summer when the Great Plague shuttered the university. Returning to Woolsthorpe, he entered an extraordinary 2-year period of isolation, his annus mirabilis, where, free from academic constraints, he laid the foundations of modern science. There, beneath an apple tree, a tale later embellished, he pondered gravity's pull, devising his universal law that bound Earth to cosmos. Simultaneously, he explored light, splitting it with a prism to reveal its spectrum, and invented calculus, influxions, as he called it, to describe motion and change, a tool so potent it reshaped mathematics. Newton's return to Cambridge in 1667 marked his ascent. Elected a Fellow of Trinity, he earned a master's degree in 1668, and at 26 succeeded his mentor Isaac Barrow as Lucian Professor of Mathematics in 1669. An astonishing rise for a farmer's son. His first public triumph came in 1672 with a reflecting telescope, its ingenious mirrors magnifying 40 times in a compact frame, impressing the Royal Society and securing his membership. Yet his accompanying paper on light and color, asserting light as particles, not waves, ignited fierce debate with Robert Hooke, a rival whose critiques stoked Newton's paranoia. Sensitive to criticism, he withdrew from public science for years, channeling energy into private obsessions. Beyond physics, he plunged into alchemy, amassing a vast library of esoteric texts and conducting experiments in a shed beside Trinity, seeking the philosopher's stone, a pursuit blending mysticism with empirical rigor that consumed decades of his life. The 1680s saw Newton's genius peak with the Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, published in 1687, a work prodded into existence by astronomer Edmund Halley. Responding to a wager about planetary orbits, Newton synthesized his earlier insights into a masterpiece. The Principia's 3 laws of motion: objects persist in rest or motion unless acted upon, force equals mass times acceleration, and every action has an equal opposite reaction, underpinned his law of universal gravitation. Explaining tides, orbits, and apples alike with mathematical precision, written in Latin, its dense prose and geometry awed contemporaries, though few grasped its depth initially. Halley funded its printing, Newton's reclusive nature nearly derailing the project when Hooke claimed credit for gravity's inverse square law. The feud soured Newton further, but the Principia's impact was seismic, cementing his reputation as Europe's preeminent intellect by his mid-40s. Newton's personal life, however, was a stark contrast to his intellectual triumphs. Unmarried and likely celibate, he formed few close bonds, his temperament prickly and solitary. His mother's death in 1689, after years of estrangement, plunged him into melancholy, followed by a nervous breakdown in 1693, possibly from mercury poisoning from alchemical work or sheer exhaustion. Letters from this period reveal paranoia, accusing friends like John Locke of betrayal, yet he emerged transformed, abandoning Cambridge in 1696 for London, where he became Warden of the Royal Mint. Tasked with recoining England's currency, he pursued counterfeiters with prosecutorial zeal, even attending executions, a far cry from the contemplative scholar. In 1703, he assumed the Royal Society's presidency, ruling it autocratically until his death. His feud with Hooke, who died that year, unresolved, but symbolically won when Newton ordered the Society's only portrait of Hooke destroyed. Newton's later years blended science, theology, and power. Knighted by Queen Anne in 1705, the first scientist so honored, he grew wealthy, though he lost a fortune in the 1720 South Sea bubble. His theological writings, rivaling his scientific output in volume, explored biblical chronology and prophecy, rejecting the Trinity as unscriptural, a heresy he kept private to avoid ruin. Optics, published in 1704, refined his light theories, while disputes over calculus with Gottfried Leibniz erupted into a bitter priority battle, Newton orchestrating a Royal Society report in his favor. Physically, he aged into a silver-haired sage, his once dark locks a casualty of time or alchemy's fumes. Health declined by his ADS, gallstones and gout plagued him, and on March 31, 1727, at 84, he died in Kensington after refusing last rites, true to his nonconformist faith. Buried in Westminster Abbey, his tomb bears a grand monument, though he requested simplicity. Newton's legacy, as of February 22, 2025, towers over science and culture. The Principia birthed classical mechanics, guiding everything from bridges to spaceflight. NASA's trajectories owe him a debt. Calculus, co-invented with Leibniz, underpins modern engineering and economics, its origins still debated but undeniably Newton's in spirit. His optics paved the way for spectroscopy, illuminating stars and atoms alike. Yet his life was no hagiography, his genius coexisted with pettiness, his rationality with superstition. A recluse who craved recognition, he hid alchemical and religious passions behind a public mask of reason. England's scientific revolution found its prophet in him, a farmer's son whose laws knit the universe into a clockwork whole. Flawed, human, yet transcendent. His mind a prism refracting truth from chaos.